Hello, everyone, and welcome to another broadcast of Adults Only. I am Jahi, and the gentleman you see at the bottom of the screen is Chazz. What's going on, Chazz?
I'm doing all right. And yourself? Thanks for asking.
Man, this subject that we're going to talk about tonight is really something that we need to discuss because we often talk about our leaders, but we don't get a chance to really go into detail as to what they stood for,
Right.
some of their teachings and all of that. So we want to do that tonight. We want to look at the teachings of Malcolm X because a
Okay.
lot of people talk about Brother Malcolm, but a lot of us don't really know the teachings. And that's what I want to start off with by just talking to you a little bit, asking you questions about why is Malcolm X teachings important?
They are important because he fought for our injustice as black people. We seem like we've been dealt a bad hand, and he was the vocal leader trying to get us help, trying to get us justice. And for some reason, people, and especially his father, that I found out as well, got killed. So
Mhm.
it's like when you stand up for something, you're going to face a lot of adversity. And it's always important to relive and look at some of his teachings. They were very profound.
Do you think that the adults in the United States of America, do you think that we talk enough about Brother Malcolm or what?
I think when we talk about him on Black History Month, or when we find out it's his birthday, we'll talk about him then. But other than that, like on a day-to-day basis, I don't think we talk about it. So once again, we only speak about him on Black History Month and on his birthday. Other than that, that's about it. And it's a shame. We should teach about him a lot more.
I think that is so true because I know this past week everybody's been, posting on social media, but I've often wanted to know is that something that they have really getting into as far as the teachings, brother, the teachings of Malcolm, not just posting and saying honor Malcolm because of what he stood for, but do we even know the teachings that Brother Malcolm was teaching? What are some of the ideas that we're going to be talking about tonight? I think it's crucial that we
Mm-hmm.
begin to break it down to where people can actually see what did this man stand for, because a lot of people have lied on him in the past and said he stood for this, he stood for that. And one of the things I want to say before we start getting into it is people don't realize though, but Brother Malcolm was really lonely at the end of his life. When I say lonely, he had been ostracized from the Nation of Islam. He
Mm.
was had beginning to start his own organization. A lot of people didn't want to touch him. A lot of people talked about him real bad. But that's the life of a leader who, even in loneliness, they still stood up for what was right when it comes to our people.
And that's just it, brother. A lot of people, like, we're so used to being a leader. We have the whole nation behind us. Everybody loves us. Everybody wants to be on our team. But like you mentioned, towards the end of his life, this man's facing loneliness, and a lot of people didn't want to be around him. I don't think a lot of us, I'm talking about in this society and today, I don't think a lot of us could be able to withhold that, withstand
Mm,
that. I mean, a lot of
yeah.
us would probably just lose our minds because we're so, and there's nothing wrong with being around people. But like you said, when you've been shut out from a society and like his own faith, the Nation of Islam turned its back against them. I mean, brother, I don't think us in this us generation, I don't think we'll be able to stand up against that. So I really do give him a lot of credit for being strong to persevere and fight through that.
I think about Dr. Martin Luther King as well. His last year, he was really ostracized too because the churches didn't want him around because he was talking about the Vietnam War. He was against it. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people didn't want him around because every time he came around, they thought, something was going to happen to their city. And it's like, although today we look at these guys as leaders and these women as leaders, but a lot of them in their last days, man, it wasn't all the glamour and the glitz that we make it out to be.
Yeah, and the infamous picture, I don't know if you have this, and I'll just share it. I'm pretty sure people have seen this on Facebook, Twitter, and all these apps where Malcolm X was peeping out the blinds. He had an assault rifle in his hand. From what I understand, people, he said that the Nation of Islam, that's when he found out they had turned against him, and I guess he felt like they were after him. And I'm pretty sure we've all seen that picture, and I thought it's pretty
Exactly.
profound.
It is. Now let's talk about teachings. When we talk about Malcolm X's teachings, what are those teachings?
Okay, give me 1 second. I got my little journal with me. Turn to it. Okay, so, teachings are ideas and lessons that someone shares to help others learn or understand something. Some of his teachings were as far as straying away from the white man, quit being so reliant on him, quit trying to always integrate with him because eventually he's going to turn his back. She's going to turn her back on you, and you're going to be stuck there looking stupid.
Yeah,
Another one that he really taught about was our identity, being
yeah,
who we are, being thankful for who we are. Quit trying to twist our identity and being to, Europeans or Asians, which let me be clear, I don't have anything against these people, but from his perspective, he felt like if we tried to integrate and be more like them, we would drop our identity. We would
Yep.
hate everything
Yep.
about ourselves and want to be
Yep.
like them.
And he is exactly right, because that's what we're facing now. His teachings and ideals, we kicked them to the curb, so to speak. And you're gonna, probably say the same thing over and over again, like I will, because a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, Malcolm X, he was really staunch. In other words, he stuck to his guns. He didn't change like us. One day we want to do something, the next day we change. He really was an advocate of helping us as a people. So let's welcome in the people that we have. Then we'll get right into some of the teachings that our brother Malcolm X basically shared with us.
Okay, Aunt Nucci's in the building. She fires in here, says, peace and blessings, fam. We appreciate her. Sister Marie fires in here. We appreciate her. She says, Hotep family, appreciate that.
Yeah, so let's take it from the top, man. And this is one of the first things that we want to talk about when it comes to the teachings of brother Malcolm X.
Number one, Black self-determination. Malcolm believed African Americans should control their own communities, politics, and destiny. Now, I'm going to be looking at my little notes here, but he felt like it empowers them as far as a sense of ownership, and it also leads to effective and adequate solutions to local problems. As far as in the politics, and this is my own 2 cents, and I hate saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway with the politics. When you believe in politics and you listen to all that, it's nothing wrong with it, but they have their own spin on it. And he felt like if Black people, us as African Americans, put our own spin on it, we don't have to worry about being lopsided or things being like we're so down rotten and evil and low down. We can have our own spin and tell you what's really going on, because normally these producers and stuff, they're going to twist it and make us look in a certain light. And he also believed that certain things were being left out on purpose, like I said, to make us look worthless and scums and low lives of the earth.
That's well said, Chazz, because a lot of us, this broadcast should have at least 15 to 20 or more people, because we're talking about Malcolm X, man. You can't slight these leaders. We often sing about them and teach on them and all these things, but we're not interested in sitting down and just really getting into the life of Malcolm X as to what did this man teach. And as you just mentioned, it says Black self-determination. Malcolm believed that African Americans should control their own communities. And we should control our own communities. We always crying about what other people do to us, but that's because we don't control our communities. The politics, as you just mentioned eloquently, we don't have politicians today that's for us. They're in politics, but some people call them politricks because they're trying to trick you to make you do things, you see. And then our destiny is in our hands. But unfortunately, a lot of us talk this good game about Afrocentrism, Black power, the 1960s and the 70s. But Chazz, we're not really thinking about those things.
Number two, Black pride. Malcolm X promoted pride in African heritage and culture, countering messages of inferiority. This is because there was a lot of rejection from the white supremacy people who were basically looking down upon us, calling us names, treating us like crap, just being low down to us African Americans as a whole. And then he also wanted to get some self-respect and a sense of pride from our ancestry, meaning all the people that we've had, like I said, Sojourner Truth, and the list goes on and on. These are African Americans who were stood for something who you should be proud of. He was trying to bring that back to people's remembrance, because once again, people looked at African Americans as scums of the earth, low down, sloppy, sorry, garbage, stuff like that. So that's why he tried to bring the African Americans' pride back up.
Yeah, and that was to counter, as this point says, to counter the messages of inferiority, because we've been told back in the day that we were nothing and that we were ignorant, that we, were just silly and all these things. We were buffoons. But see, Malcolm said we need to promote our own selves. We need to promote our own culture. We need to promote our own identity and heritage and history. And that is the message even today. We complain about what others do to us or what we allow them to do to us. But then where are our Black pride forums? Where are our identity forums where we're talking about encouraging young boys and young girls to love yourself? You're not ugly. You're beautiful, But this is something that we have to continue to talk about, because a lot of us, again, as old as we are, Chaz, we're not into this, although we want people to think we are. But we're not into the teachings of Brother Malcolm, because all we know is, as you mentioned, that he's holding a rifle, and it's a rifle looking out the window, and then the statement that we always talk about, by any means necessary, but we don't know the context to that.
Exactly. Well said. Number 3, self-defense. Malcolm supported the rights of Black people to defend themselves by any means necessary. He also believed that white people were responsible for the injustices against Black people. Black people had to defend themselves. He also believed that Black people should not be limited by the traditional means of peaceful protest. Now, what I mean by that is, by peaceful protest, yeah, we can start off being nice, trying to get things done, getting together, speaking with people. But he's saying when that's not working and these people are clearly ignoring you, you have to resort to violence. You have to resort to fighting. You have to resort to stabbing. Now, I don't condone that, but he's right. When these people are clearly showing you they're not listening to you, they're not interested in any of your complaints, they don't care what you're going through, he's saying, well, by any means, now, this is my last resort. We have to do this in order for y'all to feel us and to somehow acknowledge our complaints.
Well, you on fire today, Chaz. I don't know. I'm gonna have to get off the show and let you take it all by yourself, because you're on fire. But I don't blame you, because we have to have passion about our people, and we have to stop talking about we're down for our cause when basically we don't want to be bothered. And you're right, because if you look at Malcolm X, he has a lot of speeches that he said, and in his speeches he talked about how every country was basically won by somebody killing somebody taking land, somebody gangstering something. And he's right. But yet with us, we always want to turn the other cheek and allow people to kick us in the you know what, and thinking that one day everything's going to be all right. But this brother had his teachings were so profound, and this is why we're dedicating this actual broadcast to him. We're putting up all kinds of images as we talk throughout the night, so people can see this was a beautiful man, but his teachings, Chaz, that's what I thought was so profound when you look at the teachings of Malcolm X. Here's another teaching that you need to read with us.
Number 4, racial justice. Malcolm called out systemic racism in America and demanded immediate injustice. He also believed that racism was a prejudice thing, not deeply ingrained. Let me slow down. He believed that racism was a prejudice thing, not a deeply ingrained system that actively worked hard to dismantle Black Americans, meaning he believed that this system that was conjured up, this was a well-organized plan to specifically target and tear down the Black man, tear down the Black woman, make sure they had nothing, make sure that they kept poor, make sure that they had low funds and things like that. And he was right from that perspective, where there were a group of men and women that sat around and they purposely, it wasn't an accident, they purposely sat together to try to attack Blacks. And then I guess they expected us not to fight back. But he is spot on with that theory.
Yeah, because today when you look at racial justice, Chaz, because nothing has changed, and I often say this, the same racism that was going on during the time of Brother Malcolm is still going on today. It's just deeper seated. But instead of us, Malcolm called out this racist society, but we down each other. We say that's what the end got. The end shouldn't have been doing this. You know, we side with the enemy because we don't want to call out systemic racism. You see, we want to sit around and drink coffee and smoke cigars, you know, and not be as serious, because a lot of us, man, we talk about our ancestors and we really are not into them the way we say we are, because Brother Malcolm, he called out racism, man. But nowadays, behind closed doors, we talk loud about it. But out in public, when we need to be talking about it, out in the marketplaces, a lot of us, we're quiet as a church mouse, man. And that's really sad.
And one thing before you move on, I was just going to say real quick, I admired about him was that he put everything on the line. A lot of us, like, we sit back, we talk a good game, we're in these apartments, we're in our homes, and we talk good. But, like, if it really came down to shove, are you really down for losing your life? He was. Are you really down to really lose your money, lose everything that you have to stand up for something? And this brother was, and that's one thing I've always commended and admired of him, that he was ready to lay it all down so he can get some kind of peace. And Lucy Fires in the building. She says a lot of house niggas.
That's what it boils down to. We don't like to call it. See, Malcolm always used that kind of language, even though we know today we're in a different time, a different era, but you got the same mindset. See, you got a lot of people who don't want to, as they say, rock the boat. A lot of people are afraid. A lot of people, they want to be like other people, which is going to bring us to our next point. A lot of people want to mingle in, just like all these athletes. You can marry who you want to marry. You can date who you want to date. But a lot of them, they feel like if they get somebody white, they feel like they have arrived. And so they don't think about how the damage is being done when you get caught up in these gold diggers. And these are people from the other so-called race.
Right. Absolutely. Number 5, critique of integration. Malcolm criticized forced integration, believing it often placed Black people in disrespectful situations. He did believe that integration would hinder Black economic self-sufficiency, as Black-owned businesses would struggle against the larger establishments, meaning if you were a Black man or woman, you had a small mom-and-pop store, you were trying to do the best you could, you stood no chance against the white man because they got so much money, they got so much wealth in their family where you can't compete with that. So he was right with that perspective that the Blacks couldn't stand a chance. And then he also believed that Black Americans will lose their identity and cultural pride. Once again, I said this earlier and I'll say it again. He believed that once we start mingling with them, we will stop caring about our identity, we will hate who we are, and we will try to drop everything who we are to become just like them. That was his thought process.
And we ought to be ashamed of ourselves, man, because we feel like we want to live next door to one of them. We want to go to the same schools. But he's saying this is when they force that on you. See, Brother Malcolm didn't care who you were. He loved himself so much. He didn't want to be like other people. He wanted to be himself because he loved himself. But we want to be like other people. We even try to change our voices when we get around the people. We do, Chazz. Like, we're talking like this now, but when other people come in the room, we want to change our voices, make people think we're all that, or try to make people think we're intelligent. When Malcolm was against all that, because he knew that put us in disrespectful situations. And this is why he understood that integration, if it's not done properly, and it never was, it is a hindrance to us. It's not something that helps us.
Number 6, economic independence. Malcolm encouraged Black communities to build their own businesses and support one another. Economic independence and self-sufficiency. This was also to break the dependence on the Europeans and to separate us from oppressive systems. So once again, we should, and that is good, to build in the Black community and trust each other, help when one another is lacking. That's what the other races do. They seem to be able to say, you know what, I don't have this, I don't have that. Would you help me, or let's come together to get this done? But us Blacks, we seem like we're the main group of people who don't like to ask for help. We always fighting and bicker, going back and forth. But you need to, like Malcolm said, to blend in with each other and get help and support each other. So that way, even though we'll never surpass them because we're so far behind, but at least we could somehow try to get on the same track with them with money, because they're so far ahead of us.
This is true, because all we want to do is, you see this image that's on this screen now where he got his finger up to his eye. We want to take pictures like that so people can think we're intelligent, because that's the pose that they say, let me get that Malcolm pose, and they do this. But yet, this was a brilliant man. This was a genius, man. His information is timeless. It still holds true today, man. But like I said, we rather just take a picture like that so people can say, you look like Malcolm. But see, it's not about that, Chazz. It's about doing something about our situation, and economic independence is what Malcolm encouraged Black communities to build our own businesses and support one another. And that's one of the things that even today, we don't like to do it as a group. Now, some of us do it when we can, but for the most part, we don't trust each other. We don't think that we're legitimate. And so we don't want to be economically independent, but we complain when other people raise prices on us and do things to us that we don't appreciate.
Number 7, Pan-Africanism. Malcolm promoted unity among people of African descent worldwide. And this was also to challenge systemic racism, to achieve self-determination, and to also challenge racism and to secure freedom and justice for the Black community. Now, I've heard you speak about this African Pan Africanism before
Mhm.
with unity. And that's something we can still do this today.
Yeah,
Working together, coming with solutions. Stop bickering with each other all the time. Stop always looking for some kind of drama to stir up where we blend together. And here's the thing with unity. You don't always have to put the problems out on Front Street where the whole world to know. Call the brother, call the sister privately and hash things out behind closed doors instead of always trying to embarrass the next man. But we
that's
do need to
that's
start being more work on unity more as a whole.
I've often said this, Chaz, and people think that I always overstate things, but I'm serious when I say this.
Okay.
We have some sick people in our so-called race. We have some very sick people. Anytime you disrespect Brother Malcolm, and I'm not talking about watching this broadcast just because we're talking about Malcolm, but anytime you don't know what Malcolm X stood for, anytime we haven't read the teachings of Malcolm, anytime we don't apply what Malcolm said to us, we are a sick people because we're basically being fed into the lion's den. And instead of us trying to get out and not going in, when we don't do what this brother said, a lot of us, we're willfully running into the lion's den, getting eaten up by the lion, being mauled, and then complaining about how the lion tore us up in the den. But yet we go to him because there's no Pan-Africanism, like you mentioned. We don't, like I said earlier, we don't want to be around each other. We don't trust each other. We have some sick people, but we pose as if we are some type of unified people, but we're not unified. And this is why we're in the condition that we find ourselves in today.
Number 8, proper education. Malcolm emphasized knowledge of self, history, and truth as tools of liberation. He also believed it was essential for African Americans to gain knowledge, to develop critical thinking skills, and achieve self-determination. A lot of people didn't really believe in reading, and they try to hold a lot of knowledge and things like that back from us. This is why he believed in education, to get better jobs, to get better funds, and to also be more determined by yourself instead of always thinking and hoping that the next man or next woman is going to have their hand out to help you when they're not. So that's why it's important to educate and to gain as much knowledge as you can, as his brother stood for.
Yeah, and I always hear this, at least lately, I've been hearing this, a knowledge of self. We got to know ourselves. It's all about knowing self. Half of us don't know who we are because we think we're somebody else that we're not. We think we're entertainers. We think we're celebrities. We think we're superstars. We think we're athletes. We think we're soap opera stars. We think we're gurus. And yet, when you look at Brother Malcolm X, he realized and understood proper education was the way. These children today, many of them, not all of them, many of them don't stand a chance because their education is not being properly distributed, you understand? And no one wants to hear what we're saying now because we feel like we've arrived and we haven't. So I want you to do something for me, Chaz. I'm going to take this down, and you have a something that you played that Malcolm X said years ago, and watch how profound it is. So I'm going to get this off the screen, and I want our fans, our audience, to just listen to this and listen to how profound this is. It's only 2 minutes, so I'm going to take it off, Chaz, and you fire away with it and turn it up as loud as you can and put it as close to the mic so we can hear it. Take it away.
Okay.
This is part true. You won't find very many people who are Afro-American who will admit it. But if it is true, why? It is true that there is a sluggishness, intellectual sluggishness, academic sluggishness in almost any Negro community. But this exists only because of the result that has come upon us through years and years of slavery and being held down in this society. And this is why I made reference to the book Crisis in Black and White. This particular man gives a very good scientific analysis as to why this lethargy exists in the Negro community. It is something that has been created by the system. The system is designed to make the Negro student lose his interest in education almost before he even gets started in school. And the parents usually, who are also limited where education is concerned and who have run into so many barriers and obstacles despite the fact they had education, sometimes they ask themselves, what's the use? So as long as the system that we are in exists, and this system, the survival of this system depends upon the continued exploitation of the black man in this country. The survival of it depends upon the continued degrading of the black man in this country, and the necessity of using us as the whipping boy and the alibi and the excuse. As long as this system exists, then you will find that our people will have the same attitude toward education, and they have a justified, I should say, they have an attitude that can be explained. But at the same time, the burden rests upon the leaders of the Afro-American community to try and instill within the youth especially the desire to further their education, because without it, you're not going anywhere on this earth today.
Man, that's profound. Man, that is profound, Chazz. And he's right. It's the parents, man. The parents aren't interested in education. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm excited because that was so relevant to today. Malcolm X was more than a man. He was a prophet. Everything he said was prophetic because he studied it. He researched it. He laid it out. He made it plain. But it's the parents today, in many instances, who don't want the children to have the best education. It's the parents who want the children to go be with other people when you know these people aren't teaching this. You know they're not teaching that, but you want them to go. But like Malcolm said, the leaders aren't pushing education. The leaders want to integrate. The leaders want to get with other people. And this is why we are in the condition we're in, Chazz. And that what you just played, we might have to play it going off, because when we go off, because that's just profound, man. It really is profound, man.
Yeah, and I'll say it again, as far as with the African Americans, not all, some, I got to be clear, not all, but some of the parents don't have the energy or the time. We just give our children, if you have them, give them these tablets, give them these iPads, give them these cell phones, and they just go on in their own world, and nobody cares about their education or anything. So that's the state where we're at right now. Brother Ray Fire's in here, and he also mentions, he says, Malcolm X is the greatest Black leader born in America.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
a good man.
Yeah, you see, and this is what I mean by, and maybe we should do more broadcasts of people that are important to us, and maybe we should just listen to some of their clips like you just played, because we need to sit back and just listen. We talk too much, Chazz. That's you, me, all of us. We talk too much. We always want to be heard. We always want to be seen. We always want people to notice us. And see, we need to sit down and listen to these teachings of not just Malcolm X, but a lot of the great leaders of past, of old, because they gave us some profound knowledge and some insight on life. But yet we don't want to listen to it because we think we know everything, man. And it's unfortunate that we're in that situation, but we really don't know everything. And yet we think we know everything, and we ain't thinking about this education that Malcolm is talking about. What's another teaching that Malcolm X taught?
Number 9, criticism of white supremacy. Malcolm exposed and condemned white supremacy, structure and law, medium, education, and government. Now, this is a little side note here, because as I was researching, I found this out. His father had got killed in a terrible fatal car crash, they say. They said that his father, and he believes that the KKK were involved in that. Now, my thing is this, and I don't know, I hate to always say this, but I do believe that there is some truth to that. So my question for you, and I'm sidetracking here with this, with his father, why do you think that they killed his father or set him up in that fatal car crash?
Because his father and his mother were both Garveyites. They believed in the teachings of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey's teachings are so similar to Malcolm, because a lot of Malcolm's teachings, they talk about the same ideology that Marcus Garvey talked about. So yeah, they killed him, man. And they had his mother in a mental institution. Said they drove the lady crazy, you see. So these are the things that white supremacy will do. And Malcolm exposed that, see. He condemned white supremacy. He condemned it in structures. He condemned it in the law. He condemned it in the media. He condemned it in education. He condemned it in the government. But a lot of us won't say anything about white supremacy now, because many of us got a little job, a little penny ante job. We got a little house. We got a little car. We got kids. We got a little dog, a little poodle or something. And so we're happy now, man. And we don't make the fuss that Brother Malcolm and others made. And this is why it's crucial, man. It is crucial that we get back to the teaching of that man that you see on the screen.
Yeah, and I want to say something too real quick. Now, his family, from what I understood, and I told you just a while ago, his family was suing the government. Now, I really hope and wish that they would win, but I don't think that they were. His daughter and his family were suing the government, saying that they felt like the father, of course, Malcolm, was killed by the government and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Now,
yeah.
I don't think they're going to win, but I'm happy that they're at least trying. But I hate to say this to Malcolm's daughter. I don't think they're going to win because don't you think if the government was involved with killing him, why would they turn around and pay his family that? I just don't see that happen. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. And it's terrible, man. But most of our leaders got taken out. The government had something to do with it for the most part. So whenever you
Yeah.
speak for truth, you name them: Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, all of them. When you think about it, whenever we stand up for righteousness, that's the fight. Because
Yeah.
Malcolm told you the cost of freedom is death. He told us that the cost of freedom is death, but we're afraid to die. And that's why a lot of
Right.
us are interested in Malcolm X.
Brother Ray Fires in here. He says, I enjoy doing homework with my children. They are adults now, and I still provide knowledge. I gain to them. Well, that's good. You take the time, Ray. And he also mentions, he says, Malcolm X's grandfather and father were Garveyites. That's what you
Yeah,
just mentioned.
yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
what we were talking about. So yeah, Chaz, this next point I want to talk about too, because it's important that we talk about this point here about a teaching of Malcolm.
Number 10, moral reform. Malcolm urged black men and black women to live upright lives, free from drugs and alcohol, knowing this is systemic. Yeah, because normally 9 times out of 10, when we get involved with drugs and alcohol, it turns most of the time to fights, violence. You start to get into gangs, stuff like that. And he knew that if we could stay sober and have a clear mind, we could operate in our sharpest minds. We could be sharp, we could be focused, we can get things done and have a better education. But when you're putting these toxins, you're putting this alcohol, you're putting this dope in your body, it tears your brain cells down, it makes you slower, and it's just not good for your health overall. And he knew that if you could stay sober free and have a clear and sharp mind, that would be the biggest enemy to the white man. And he knew that.
Yeah, he also knew that the drugs, he said they bring alcohol into the system, into our community, then they sell it to you and get you drunk. Then they arrest you when they get you drunk. Then they put you in jail. Then you got to pay to get out of jail. They bring dope into our communities and they sell us the drugs. They let the drugs in here because they know they're going to take the drugs and go to the so-called inner cities and destroy men's and women's lives. So he was teaching that all this is systemic, man. He says this is the system. This is how the system get money. It gets its money because it brings the crap into our communities. Then it distributes it, even among some of us. He called them handkerchief heads. We distribute it amongst each other, and we think we're doing something, but we basically are destroying our communities. And we got to start living upright lives. He said he didn't talk down to us, but he just told us how important it was for us to live upstanding and upright lives.
And I want to tie this in here before I get to Brother Ray's comment. I know sometimes I'm all over the place, but I kind of feel like it goes with this comment that we just mentioned. Now, Ronald Reagan, he did this as well. Back in when he was the president, he flooded the black community with crack cocaine. And a lot of people gloss over this and act like this wasn't happening. You Google it, you YouTube it, you'll find out that this man, Ronald Reagan, was pushing, he was behind the flooding of the crack cocaine in the black community. And this is what goes with this point here, how he knew Ronald Reagan, as low down as he was, he knew if blacks got hooked on crack, he know that would be basically the end for us. And shame on him for doing that to us. But I'll go ahead and move on to Brother Ray's comment. He says, you must get the right information to make the correct formation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's true. So yeah, Chaz, let's keep on talking about this. What another point that Malcolm taught?
Number 11, youth empowerment. Malcolm often spoke directly to young black people, encouraging them to take pride in themselves. Absolutely, to tell and try to give them hope, to give them encouragement, to tell them, you can be as good as me. I'm talking about as him. You can be as good as all these other leaders and activists. If you have pride in yourself, take care of yourself. Don't look at yourself as inferior, because the news and all that did a good job back then in making us feel like that. And he was just trying to basically give hope and inspire the youth to have something to look forward to, because the crime and stuff was terrible back then as well.
Yeah, and he knew that the youth future leaders. He knew that. So he spoke directly to them, see? He spoke directly to young black people, and he encouraged them to take pride in themselves, because we didn't have pride for the longest. You know, Marcus Garvey brought that same message of pride. Booker T. Washington brought that message of pride. You know, a lot of other sisters brought that message of pride. Sojourner Truth brought the message of pride. Fannie Lou Hamer, and I can go on and on and on, but they wanted the youth to know that they were somebody. But a lot of us today, Chazz, we're not interested. And I hate to keep sounding like a Debbie Downer, but I gotta say it because I want to deal in reality. I don't want to deal in fantasy. The reality is, a lot of us don't care about these teachings because the things that we're talking about, we're not teaching them ourselves. We're not teaching our young kids to take pride in themselves. We're teaching them to go to school, try to imitate, be like somebody else, so that you can pass and nothing will happen to you. And that's why I think this man was a genius in all of his teachings, because he dealt with the situation that was at hand.
Well said. Number 12, freedom by any means. Malcolm taught that freedom should not be begged for, but taken if necessary. We spoke about this earlier. A lot of us were trying to do it the peaceful way, and these people weren't listening. They were ignoring. They were showing us clearly to our face, we don't care about your complaints. We don't care about your crime. We don't care about you whining and complaining about this. We're just going to ignore you, and if you keep ignoring us, Malcolm's point here I'm adding in, he's saying, well, since you keep ignoring us and you're not listening, well, we have to get violent because nothing else is working. And if we show you by violence that we're serious, hopefully that'll get your attention and start attending to some of the problems that we're having.
Yeah. And the freedom that he's talking about, Chazz, we nowadays, we're not interested in total liberation. We're not interested in total liberation. I'm gonna tell you why. We're too caught up in our own families. Our families are bringing so much havoc in our lives, and we're so caught up with them that we can't get freedom. We can't have a peace of mind because everything is about something or someone in our family that's either doing something or bothering us and is killing us, and we can't function because of our family. And this is why Malcolm taught this about freedom. He was a staunch advocate of freedom because he kept talking about how important freedom was, and the mind has to be free.
Nucci fires in the building. She says, and then Nancy Reagan had the nerve to just say no. Yeah.
She's saying they flooded us with these drugs. Her husband, Ronald Reagan, did. And then he destroyed many lives. And then she gonna get up on TV and say, just say no. When you're flooding this stuff into our communities. That's hypocrisy at its best.
It was. And then when you tell somebody to say that, it's hard to tell somebody to say no once you get hooked. I mean, all it takes is one time, and it's definitely terrible. And I despise that Miss Reagan said that. Move on to Brother Ray's comment. He says, the teen, adolescent, and young adults are the frontline activists in Black movements. The elders are the providers of the information and direction that the frontline activists enforce and performs. Well said.
I want to say something about that, what Brother Raymond just said.
Okay.
That is so precise. But the only thing that I want to add to that is this.
Okay.
Theoretically, Raymond is right. He's absolutely correct. Because the teen, adolescent, and the young adults, they are the frontline activists in Black movements. And when you think about back then, the elders are the providers of the information and direction. But today, the elders aren't thinking about information. Now, some of us are. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. But if we're honest with what is really going on in the United Snakes of America, if we're honest about that, we know that that's not true. Now, theoretically, he's right. And that's what every movement have that going on. But in our society, I cannot sit here as a man and tell you that that's going on. It's not going on. We don't want to be bothered with our children. We're afraid of the youth. We don't want to be around them. So Brother Malcolm was right in all these things he's saying, but in many instances, that was back then, and this is now, and nobody's taking that mantle and running with it.
Brother, you are spot on tonight. You are just fired away. 13, personal transformation. Malcolm showed the power of change as he evolved from a troubled youth to a powerful leader. stressing that anyone can rise above their circumstances. Absolutely. There's a lot of us. We've all, I'll say, every last one of us that are on this earth have done some things that we shouldn't have done or acted stupidly in places that we shouldn't have been acting that way. And Malcolm is saying that just because you got involved with danger and violence and stuff when you're young, it's not too late. Don't dwell in it. Don't make that your identity, that when you get arrested and become a thug and stuff, that's all you want to be. No, you can still become a powerful leader. It all goes back to the mind, and don't dwell in the wrongdoings that you did.
Yeah, because Malcolm X, when you think about his life when he was Detroit Red, he was a pimp. He sold women to other men. He did drugs. He sold drugs. He went to prison. But all of that helped him in the end become the man that he was. Because when he went to prison, instead of trying to get over on people, he studied the dictionary to where he learned how to use words. And then when one of the brothers that was in the pen with him told him about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he began to ask questions and begin to see that all the stuff he had been taught was not right. And so then he made that transformation with the Nation of Islam. So it's like you can be and you can rise above your circumstance. But we don't realize that this brother didn't have everything on a silver platter. Malcolm, listen, if you know, let me put something up here so you can see what I'm trying to say. I got to put this up here, Chazz, because I don't think you realize this. And I want everybody to look at this.
Okay.
Look at the crawl at the bottom. It says Malcolm X, May the 19th, 1925 to February 21st, 1965. When Malcolm X was assassinated, Malcolm X was only 39 years old. For those who said that's 40, his birthday hadn't come yet. So he was 39, he was 39 years old, Chazz, when he was assassinated. He was a young man, dude.
That is
really young, powerful. But we don't look at that because we're too busy trying to get a shirt that have an X on it because we saw Spike. We saw a movie called Malcolm X, and we want to be like we see Denzel and these guys in these movies. But everybody want to get the cat with the X on it and don't know what it stands for. Don't even know what it stands for, man. 39 years old when he was assassinated.
That's a crying shame. And like you said, when you think about it, life to only live on this earth for 39 years, that's short. That's the blink of an eye.
Yes,
that's terrible. And I was laughing at you were saying, I'm not laughing at Malcolm X's death, but I was laughing at, the little commentary. But that is terrible that this man that lost his life at the age of 39. I mean, that is terrible, man.
Yeah.
Number 14, media awareness. Malcolm warned that the media plays a powerful role in shaping public perception and can misrepresent Black leaders and communities. We see that to this day. A lot of the news, they still doing that now. A lot of the Blacks that are portrayed on the news, when you go to Chicago, Philadelphia, Illinois, all these states, and crimes occur there, they always show the Black man or the Black woman as scums, evil, low down. All they want to do is get people pregnant and not take care of their kids, and that's not the case. And then also they can shape, if they wanted to, the media can shape it to make us Black people look well put together, look like nice people, but they don't. And this is spot on to how the media does a good job at playing a role in tearing down us African Americans, especially our leaders as well. You look at Martin Luther King, they do that with him as well. There's a lot of theories and stuff going out about him now, saying that he was a sellout and all this kind of stuff. So the media is doing a good job at conjuring this stuff up, basically, and X is spot on.
It goes back to what I've said. Malcolm X was a genius, man. But a lot of us, I think we're more interested in the name, okay? We're interested in saying the name X, I'm like X, but we're not interested in the teachings of X. We're not interested in the philosophy of Malcolm X. We're not privy to the wisdom of Malcolm X, you see. So we just want to put pictures up like this on our wall, so when people come in our homes or apartments, they can say, "Wow, you're deep." No, you're not deep. That's just a picture. You know we do that. Many of us do this. We do. That's why this is why it's hard to try to get people to come out of their ignorant ways. Because it doesn't matter if you wear a shirt like that and you don't wear that shirt till you go around a lot of Black people so they can think you down. with his face on. This image is on the shirt. You don't wear that till you get around a lot of African Americans or blacks, so they can say, "Man, you must be deep." No, that's just a picture of a man that you purchased, but you know nothing about his teaching. Because if you did, as you just mentioned, media awareness. Malcolm X warned that the media plays a powerful role. It shapes public perception and can misrepresent black leaders and even us. Yeah. That's why every time you see one of us, even now we say, if we see a black man on the news, he must have done something, or a black woman, she must have done something. And that's not the case, because Malcolm understood that. And I think it's just a disgrace right now, because a lot of us, man, we don't get it, man.
Brother Ray fires in here. He says the live is malfunctioning on my end. I'm sorry about that, Brother Ray. You probably want to power your phone off and then power it back on if you can. And then he also comes back at us. He says Malcolm X had self-discipline too. Yeah, that's a tough thing to do, especially in this society, or even back then, to be able to discipline yourself from certain things. It takes a lot of willpower and strength. But Ray, just try to power your phone off and cut it back on, see if it helps better.
Yeah, that was a powerful statement he said, because discipline is what is lacking in many of our lives. Your life, my life, most of our lives. We have no discipline, man. Well, discipline has escaped us. We do whatever we want to do. We say whatever we want to say. We go off, fly off the handle. We don't think, we don't critique when someone comes to us. Instead of saying, let me think about that, we answer flippantly, don't even know the different ramifications as to what will happen if we do this. So, again, this is one of those things where we like to talk about people that were important in our culture and our history. But again, the teachings is what I want to know. Are we living by the teachings that this brother laid down?
Wow. Number 15, legacy and accountability. Malcolm demanded that America should confront its history of slavery, racism, and exploitation. He knew that he was saying that because America should. He knew that as a whole, we were in slavery, we were done wrong. And he wanted to bring awareness to that so people could stop looking at us in a certain way, so people could stop treating us in a certain light. He wanted to expose this so people can actually get aware of what's really going on, so things weren't so lopsided, and for these people to show us how wicked and evil they were, instead of trying to flip it on us, basically.
Yeah, Malcolm X demanded that America should confront its history of slavery, racism, and exploitation. But we today, many of us, we don't want to hear about it. We're tired of hearing about slavery. We're tired of hearing about racism. We're tired of hearing about exploitation. All you black guys do is complain. All you guys do is always say the system is unfair. And so we're sick of that. Some of our so-called celebrities, they even saying this now. They're sick of seeing movies that depict us as enslaved, but yet that was the reality. Jew on the Holocaust, they will never get tired of seeing the Holocaust, because it means a lot to them to see what their people went through and how they came out of it. But with us, we're sick of seeing any other movie. We would like to watch vampires or something silly, but yet when you talk about the history, we don't want to get into that, man. So it's like we have some very, very sick people, because we're acting as if slavery didn't happen. Yeah. That was a long time ago. Racism is not like it used to be, and we're not being exploited because everybody's equal. That's the biggest lie, and Brother Malcolm exposed that, as you and I should have the same ideal.
Anucci fires in here. She says, "Can you brothers do a show on the Honorable Marcus Garvey?" Yeah,
that's what this show is all about. You know what? That's how we're gonna do it. In fact, sister, we're so gung ho now that next week you already picked our subject. Can you brothers do a show on the Honorable Marcus Garvey? So we're going to get started on our homework when we get off this here broadcast, and we're going to start, combing the pages and looking at some concepts, because I think we should do more shows on brothers and sisters, because it's important that we know who we talk about when we say these names on these broadcasts and just in life in general.
Brother Ray fires in here. He says, "I love self-discipline. It pays off in so many ways." Yeah, it does. In the self-discipline, I'll read this comment in a second. Self-discipline isn't only in one area. There's multiple areas. There's self-discipline in food, self-discipline in our mouths, the way we cuss and talk dirty to each other and nasty to each other. There's self-discipline in so many ways, and you can always get better at it. You may be good in one area, but there's always a way to get better in another area. So Brother Ray is spot on, how he loves discipline, and hopefully he can keep that up. Then he fires back in here again. He says, Marcus Garvey is the greatest black leader of all time.
Now
All
this,
these,
yeah. You know, this Brother Ray, he's good because somebody might say, well, he contradicted himself, because I'm gonna put something up that he said earlier. Now he says Marcus Garvey is the greatest black leader of all time. And then he says that Malcolm X is the greatest black leader born in America. So basically what he's saying is he's giving them props because he respects them, that he's putting a hierarchy on them, which we know there's no such thing as a hierarchy. We know that all of the black leaders did what they did before us. So it's like a basketball team or any other thing that we do. Everybody is important, but he's giving them homage because he's talking about how high rank he has them. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, we can go on and on, you know, Annie Malone, all these people, man. These people, they did so much for us, and I think we got to start talking about them more, Chazz. And like the sister said, we got to do a broadcast on Marcus Garvey next Wednesday. She even says thank you for that, because Brother Malcolm was something else when it came to what he dealt with. In fact, let's stop talking now and let everybody be quiet.
Okay.
Let's listen. Let's listen to the wisdom. Dial it up again, Chazz. I want everybody to listen to the wisdom of Malcolm X.
Okay. Dialing it up right now. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go.
This is part true. You won't find very many people who are Afro-American who will admit it. But if it is true, why? It is true that there is a sluggishness, intellectual sluggishness, academic sluggishness in almost any Negro community. But this exists only because of the result that has come upon us through years and years of slavery and being held down in this society. And this is why I made reference to the book Crisis in Black and White. This particular man gives a very good scientific analysis as to why this lethargy exists in the Negro community. It is something that has been created by the system. The system is designed to make the Negro student lose his interest in education almost before he even gets started in school. And the parents usually, who are also limited where education is concerned and who have run into so many barriers and obstacles despite the fact they had education, sometimes they ask themselves, what's the use? So as long as the system that we are in exists, and this system, the survival of this system depends upon the continued exploitation of the black man in this country. The survival of it depends upon the continued degrading of the black man in this country, and the necessity of using us as the whipping boy and the alibi and the excuse. As long as this system exists, then you will find that our people will have the same attitude toward education. And they have a justified, I should say, they have an attitude that can be explained. But at the same time, the burden rests upon the leaders of the Afro-American community to try and instill within the youth especially the desire to further their education, because without it, you're not going anywhere on this earth today.
You know what, though, man? That's just profound, man. That really is. Malcolm X teachings. See, this is what we got to do more of. We got to get off into what did these sisters and brothers stand for? Not just because of the time era they were in. What did they stand for? What kind of message were they posing to us? What were they saying we should do? And we know that Malcolm X talked a lot about self-determination, black pride, as we'll talk about Marcus Garvey, because he also talked a lot about pride. And Malcolm X talked about self-defense. You know, he talked about racial justice. He critiqued integration. He talked about economic independence. He talked about Pan-Africanism. Malcolm talked about proper education, as you just played. He talked about the criticism of white supremacy. He talked about moral reform. He talked about youth empowerment. He talked about freedom by any means necessary. He talked about personal transformation, and he talked about being aware of the media. And last but not least, he talked about many more things, but our broadcast tonight, he talked about legacy and accountability. And I mean, man, this is really important. This broadcast is very important. But once again, you see how we are as a people, because when it all boils down, a lot of us ain't a bit more thinking about no Malcolm X than a man in the moon.
No, I think some of us are. Like I said, we just need to do a better job at really listening to his teachings and looking at his videos and reading his books. But like you said, we only care about it.
Yeah, not all of us, but a lot of us are. I went to I was moderating for a panel discussion on Malcolm X this past week. You should have seen how many people were there. That's why I know a lot of us aren't about it. But if Snoop or somebody else was here, a famous wrestler or a singer, that place would have been packed. So that's why I always make that statement. Not all of us, but many of us aren't thinking about Malcolm X. We're not thinking about Marcus Garvey and these people.
If you could tell me, brother, how many people were at the Malcolm X thing that you went to?
It was about 15. It was about 15. And then some people say, well, it doesn't matter about the numbers as long as people are there. No, it does matter, because you want more people to hear about it. You want as many people to know, because we're ignorant. And this is why I am the way I am today, because I'm a realist. I'm not a fantasy guy. I don't live in fantasy world where I'm telling, oh, this was great because we talked about Malcolm X. It was great because of discussion. But the people that were there, those who didn't come, they didn't want to be there. They had other things to do, like our broadcast. We know everybody can't stop what they're doing and watch this broadcast, but many people knew we were talking about Malcolm X. Where are they now? But let us talk about Beyonce, Jay-Z, Denzel Washington, or some, Steve Harvey. This is the problem that Malcolm was talking about, man. And we got to address those issues and quit acting like, not you, but we as a people, we got to quit acting like everything is great when it's not. We're still struggling with racism. We're still struggling with sexism. We're still struggling with bigotry. And Malcolm addressed all of those issues and then some. But yet we don't have the decency, man. We don't have the time to sit our behinds down for 30 minutes and listen to a teaching of Malcolm X, even on a video. We on YouTube for everything else. We won't even dial up one of his speeches and listen to it. This is why I know that we're not the people that we say we are.
Wow. I don't have anything else to say after that, brother. You've been real radical today. Sister Sakina fires in here. She says, Assalamu alaikum, and most of the ones there already knew about Malcolm X.
Yeah, so what's the use? Yeah, right. And this sister and I, we're really good friends, close friends, and we've had this discussion, and we talk about these kind of issues, and she's absolutely 100% correct. She doesn't bite her tongue, but see, a lot of us like to kowtow. We like to make people think, well, this is great, when it's not great, because a lot of us aren't I'm telling you, Chazz, and when Malcolm X's birthday goes, it already has come and gone, I give us a few more months and watch. We'll just be waiting for somebody else's birthday. We're not going to revisit this. We're not going to live out the teachings, because his teachings, if we live them out, those teachings will transform our lives. Every one of them, at least some of the teachings, not all of them, because we're not going to do it, but just some of them. Support Black businesses, stuff of that nature that Malcolm was talking about. So this is why I'm telling you now, a lot of us are full. I can't say it on this broadcast, but you know what I'm going to say. The last word is, a lot of us we're full of what. But yet, we don't want people to know that. We only have 2 minutes left. You've been on fire tonight yourself. So, I mean, you hollering and carrying on. You're very strident, but it's just that this is important to us, man. And people should feel like this is no game, man. People should want to learn. They children. Okay, let me ask you this, Chazz. How many parents, percentage-wise, do you think of African-American descent had this discussion about Malcolm X? Not many, because they don't know. Like Sakina said, most of the parents aren't interested unless it's his birthday or we want to see him. So this is what I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. On his birthday, a lot of people talked about it. But like on a day-to-day basis, like you said, the percentage is probably like, to me, about 5%, maybe if that, on a day-to-day. But like I said, on his birthday, Kwanzaa, Black History, we all flooding it on the internet. But on a day-to-day basis, I agree, it's not that many, brother.
Yeah, we make it. We're hypocrites, man, and we don't want to be called that, because see, many of us we don't like guys like you and I and sisters like you and I that tell the truth. And to be honest with you, Chazz, you and I had this discussion, but a lot of us wouldn't have liked Malcolm X. I know we wouldn't have liked him. I know we wouldn't have liked him because he was real, man. He was honest about us as a people. But a lot of us, we don't like to get our feelings hurt. We don't like to be told that we got to stop doing something and we got to start doing something else. So this is very, very problematic. And this is why I think we are in the situation that we're in. But yeah, I'm gonna speak first. I'll let you close us out. But again, we thank you guys that those who showed up. We really appreciate you showing up for this broadcast. You could not go you couldn't go wrong in watching this. We were talking about the teachings of Malcolm X. If you didn't tune in from the beginning, go back and watch it from its inception. Because we talked about a lot of issues that a lot of us don't want to talk about when we talk about Malcolm X. So again, we want you to continue to watch this broadcast for the sister that said, can we do one on Marcus Garvey? That's going to be our next week's broadcast. You would think people would come out to listen to brothers talk about the Honorable Marcus Garvey. See what happens on next week, guys, when we talk about the Honorable Marcus Garvey. So that's why I know a lot of us are hypocrites, man, and we got to do a better job. So that's all I'm trying to say. You know, we love you. We want you to know that this broadcast can be seen every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. So please, brothers and sisters, tell us on about the broadcast so we can have these discussions. I'm going to turn it over to Chad as I read this last comment. She says, sacred, scared hypothetical house Negroes. That's what she's saying. and that's what Malcolm called them, handkerchief. So Chad, I'm out of here. I'm going to let you take us home. So I'll see you next week. I'll give the floor to you, and you take us home.
All right. Tonight was a good broadcast about Brother Malcolm X. We talked about some of his teachings, what he stood for as a black man, and how it still affects us today. We talked about how us as blacks wanting to be like other races, tearing down our own cultural identity, not wanting to be who we are. In fact, we're trying to drop everything we are to be like other races. He talked about us helping the black community, helping other black businesses, unity, and so many other things that this brother stood for that we just ignore to this day. Hopefully we can get a grip on this and use some of these teachings, like the brother said earlier, apply it to our lives. Get unity, give to black businesses, work together, stop tearing each other down, quit always looking to rip somebody apart, and actually work with unity. We appreciate Brother Malcolm and everything he's done. And that's all I have to say on this one. Take care, everybody. I hope to see you next week.